Hola hermanos, ¿qué tal están? Sean muy bienvenidos a este canal. Ahora vamos a más una reunión de fin de semana con el discurso público y también el estudio de a Sentinela de la semana 21 a 27 de junio. Muito obrigado por estarem con nosotros en este vídeo. Vamos começar.
Today, we're considering study article 16 from the April 2021 issue of the Watchtower. And the article is entitled, Continue Appreciating the Ransom. Our theme scripture is Mark 10, verse 45. The Son of Man came to give his life as a ransom in exchange for many. So we look forward in this discussion to answering the question, why did Jesus suffer a cruel death? And our answering that question and considering other information will also help us we'll see how it helps us to strengthen our appreciation for the ransom, how we can continue to do so as highlighted in the title of our article. We have quite a number of scriptures throughout our lesson today, so we look forward to hearing your use of or reference to these scriptures in your comments in our discussion. To begin, we'd like to start with the reading of paragraphs of 1 and 2, and Brother Latinet will do the reading for us.
When the perfect man Adam sinned, he lost the opportunity for everlasting life, not only for himself, but also for his future children. There was no excuse for what Adam did. His sin was deliberate. But what about his children? They had played no role in Adam's sin. Could anything be done to rescue them from the death sentence that their forefathers so richly deserved? Yes. Soon after Adam sinned, Jehovah progressively revealed how he would rescue millions of Adam's offspring from the curse of sin and death. At his appointed time, Jehovah would send his son from heaven to give his life as a ransom in exchange for many. What is the ransom? When referred to in the Christian Greek scriptures, the ransom is the price Jesus paid to buy back what Adam lost. Why do we need the ransom? Because Jehovah's standard of justice set out in the law required that a life be given for a life. Adam lost his perfect human life. To satisfy God's justice, Jesus sacrificed his perfect human life. He thus becomes an eternal father to all those who exercise faith in the ransom.
So our question for these two paragraphs, what is the ransom and why do we need it? Sister Moreno, please.
Well, we see that the ransom is the price that Jesus paid to buy what Adam had lost. As we can see in Exodus 21:23, the law required that a life be given for a life.
Excellent, thank you. Sister Latinet, please.
And we need it because his perfect life was what was required to pay it. So no matter how many imperfect lives we add up, no matter how hard we try, it was never going to equal what was lost.
Indeed. Brother Moreno, please.
And we see here that both Adam and Jesus acted in a deliberate manner. Adam was deliberate, and he decided to sin, and there he lost his perfect human life. But Jesus was different. He acted deliberately in a selfless way, self-sacrificing way, and he gave his life for us.
Thank you for highlighting that. Let's continue with paragraph 3.
Jesus was willing to sacrifice his life because of his great love for his heavenly Father and for us. Moved by that love, he was determined to keep his integrity to the end and to accomplish his Father's will. Jesus did so by remaining faithful until his death. As a result, Jehovah's original purpose for mankind and for the earth will be fulfilled. In this article, we will discuss why God allowed Jesus to suffer so much before he died. We will also briefly review the example of a Bible writer who deeply appreciated the ransom. And finally, we will discuss how we can show our thankfulness for the ransom and how we can deepen our appreciation for the sacrifice that Jehovah and Jesus provided for us.
We have two read scriptures noted for us in our paragraph, so let's consider those. Would someone like to volunteer to read John 14, verse 31 for us? Sister Fruden, please.
But for the world to know that I love the Father, I am doing just as the Father has commanded me to do. Get up, let us go from here.
Thank you. And may we have a volunteer for John chapter 15, verse 13. Sister Light, please.
No one has love greater than this, that someone should surrender his life in behalf of his friends.
Thank you. So our question, according to John 14:31 and 15:13, why was Jesus willing to sacrifice his perfect human life? Sister Wicker?
Because of his great love for his heavenly Father and for us.
Yes, good. Brother Gardner, please.
Got to go along with Sister Wicker in verse 14:31, the one we read, the world to know that I love the Father. So we think about Jesus. He was with Jehovah from the start, knew his original purpose, and loved his Father so much he was willing to do this.
Indeed, thank you. Sister Morales, please.
Kind of the same thought that the brother mentioned, and we think about things that Jesus had to leave behind, like his heavenly home, his association with his heavenly creatures. And then he had to come down to the earth, be in a womb for 9 months, having to deal with imperfect people. And he did it all willingly because of that great love that he had. And that love, it's what impelled him to have that determination and that courage to keep his integrity and finally sacrifice his human life.
Yes, thank you. And Brother Zamora, please.
And Jesus applied his own teachings in John 15:13. He says, no one has love greater than this, that someone should surrender his life in behalf of his friends. So he wasn't above his own teaching. He was applying his own teachings as an example, and it was all motivated by love.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Sister Riddle, please.
And Jehovah's sovereignty is personal for Jesus. He was most anxious to serve for the vindication of Jehovah's sovereignty, and he proved this by remaining faithful until his death.
Very nice. And Brother Miller?
And I really like in John 15:3 how Jesus says that at the end that he sacrificed his life in behalf of his friends. He didn't say for his disciples, but his friends. So we can see that love that he has for us and why why he sacrificed his life.
Very good. Well, thank you for those excellent comments, brothers and sisters. That really sets the tone for our lesson. Let's continue now with our first subheading. Why was Jesus allowed to suffer? And that brings us to paragraph 4.
Imagine what the last day of Jesus' earthly life was like. Although he can call on legions of angels to protect him, he allows himself to be seized by Roman soldiers who beat him mercilessly. They use a whip that rips strips of flesh from his body. Later, they load a heavy beam on his lacerated back. Jesus begins to drag the stake to the place of execution, but soon a bystander is conscripted to carry it for him. When Jesus arrives at the place where he will die, his executioners nail his hands and his feet to the stake. The weight of Jesus' body tears at the nail wounds. His friends grieve, and his mother weeps. But the Jewish religious leaders mock Jesus. One agonizing hour follows another. His heart and lungs become strained, and his breathing becomes more difficult. With his dying breath, he utters one last triumphant prayer. Then he bows his head and surrenders his life. It was truly a slow, painful, humiliating way to die.
As we discussed paragraph 4, we have a picture that ties in with this paragraph, so please feel free to incorporate comments on that picture. For this discussion, describe how Jesus died. Brother Latinet.
What we see reflected in the description of what took place, really, again, Jesus' love for us, because it wasn't easy. He was tortured, he was whipped. We can imagine his back being ripped by that whip. He was forced to carry the stake. He was not treated well. He was even mocked for what he was doing, even though he was doing nothing wrong. So this was a very strenuous and very difficult way to die.
Yes. Brother Light, please.
And also beyond the attacks and the pain that he had to endure physically, perhaps even worse was the fact that his own friends and his very own mother had to observe it. And he saw the emotional pain on their faces, and no doubt that led to his extreme emotional torment.
Yeah, so true. Brother Brown?
And the image really helps us to put ourselves there and imagine it, and all the different aspects of it. In the top right, the pain that he experienced with carrying the beam, the exhaustion that he went through. And then in the bottom right, in the foreground, the humiliation of people mocking him, even putting a crown of thorns on his head, mocking the fact that he was a king when in reality he was going to be. And so that obviously tore at not just Jesus' body, but also his mind and heart.
Thank you. Sister Light, please.
And I don't know if any of us would actually choose to suffer like we see in this picture, all that Jesus had to go through. There in Matthew chapter 26, verse 53, it mentions that he could have called a legion of angels, unlimited number, to just stop it all. But because of that love that he had for Jehovah and for humans, he endured such torture.
Yes, thank you for tying it back to that, what his motivation, that love. Sister Parchment, please.
And we can see that he had not only his family and friends there were other observers. For example, in Matthew 27:32, it mentions Simon and how he was from the North African coast, and he was in this area watching. And here the Roman authorities, they demanded that Simon help Jesus carry his torture stake, which in the Roman mileage or numbers, it says that he had to carry it up to a mile before he died.
Thank you for those extra details. So this picture that we have in this paragraph really helps us to imagine or visualize, right, what Jesus went through and endured. But yet there's even something worse that he had to deal with. Let's consider that in paragraph 5.
For Jesus, the manner of his execution was not the worst part of his ordeal. He was more distressed by the charge that was the basis for his execution. He was falsely accused of being a blasphemer, someone who had no respect for God or for God's name. The very thought of that charge tormented Jesus so much that he hoped his Father would spare him this humiliation? Why did Jehovah allow his beloved Son to suffer and die? Let us consider 3 reasons.
For Jesus, what was worse than the way he was killed? Sister Fruden?
Well, it was this false charge against him for blasphemy. In Matthew 26, he expressed it. It's recorded for us to understand. He felt deeply grieved at this charge, and that was worse than all those horrible, painful things that he suffered.
Yes. Sister Moreno, please.
And to think of Jesus' feelings in this situation, we see that he was so tormented by being falsely accused. So it kind of shows us that even though he was God's son and he was perfect, he was still human and had feelings just like we do.
Thank you. Brother Parchment, please.
Yes, and this is very remarkable when we reflect on Jesus and his love for his Father, because throughout this account, numerous times he refers to Father, 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 and it just really reminds us of that relationship that Jesus has with his Father, and how we too need to continue to develop that close relationship with Jehovah, so that we too can endure different types of trials. I thought that was very, very remarkable.
Thank you. And Sister Wicker, please.
Jesus was in a lot of pain, but he never said, that's a sin or no. I like it when he say in Matthew 26:42, he say in the end, let your will take place. For more important for Jesus, knowing how he feel, is how is Jehovah thinking. That's an excellent example for us.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. So we've considered just the immense pain, right, and humiliation that Jesus suffered. The question is why? Why did Jehovah allow that? Let's consider the first of 3 reasons with paragraph 6.
First, Jesus had to be hung on a stake to free the Jews from a special curse. They had agreed to observe God's law, but had fallen far short of keeping it. As a result, this curse was in addition to their condemnation as offspring of sinful Adam. God's law to Israel stated that a man who committed a sin deserving of death should be executed. Afterward, his dead body may be hung on a stake. So by being hung on a stake, Jesus made it possible for the very nation that rejected him to benefit from his sacrifice.
Why did Jesus have to be hung on a torture stake? Sister Light?
Well, according to Galatians 3, verse 10, it says, cursed is everyone who does not remain in all the things written in the scroll of the law by doing them. So the Jews had fallen short of obeying the law. And the footnote there says that this curse was being condemned by God. So they needed someone to redeem them from the sin of Adam.
Good. Brother Ratty, please.
And as we can see here in Deuteronomy 27:26, it brought a curse upon the people. So Jehovah, in bringing the ransom sacrifice, wanted to free not just some of mankind, but all of mankind. And the only way for him to legally do that through the law he set up was to have his son die on a stake. So it shows us not only how loving Jehovah is, but also he's got all the details well in mind.
Thank you. Brother Wicker?
We could kind of compare this to having a jail sentence, but also having to pay a fine. So all of us are locked inside of, well, sin's figurative jail, But the nation of Israel, they also had additional fines that they had to pay because of that disobedience to Jehovah's law. So if Jesus would have died in a different manner, it would have freed us from sin's jail, as it were, but it wouldn't have paid the fines for Israel under the law covenant. So it really built my appreciation to learn how the ransom took very great care to cover every detail to ensure that whatever right-hearted person would have an opportunity.
Thank you for that nice illustration. Very helpful. Sister Ladinette, please.
I appreciated that point as well, because to pay for the Adamic death, Jesus just had to die. But when the Israelites agreed to abide by everything that was in that law that Moses presented to them, they were then signing up really for these specific rules. And of course, having inherited the Adamic sin, they could not fulfill it perfectly. And so because of that curse, that's why Jesus had to die as he did on a stake. So just all of the details that Jesus fulfilled by his death really impressed me.
Thank you. Those comments answer that question well for us, and we appreciate, especially in the New World Translation, the study note on Galatians 3:13 about this curse. Excellent, valuable information in that study note for us on this topic. Let's consider a second reason why God allowed his son to suffer in paragraph 7.
Consider a second reason why God allowed his son to suffer. He was training Jesus for his future role as our high priest. Jesus experienced how difficult it is to obey God when under extreme test. He felt so much pressure that he prayed for help with strong outcries and tears. Certainly, having gone through a wrenching emotional distress, Jesus himself understands our needs and is able to come to our aid when we are being put to the test. How grateful we are to Jehovah for appointing over us a merciful high priest who can sympathize with our weaknesses.
What is a second reason why God allowed his son to suffer? Brother Juan?
Well, as we've seen in Hebrews 2, verse 17, Jesus needed to become like his brothers. And so he needed to experience that faith and obedience to Jehovah while living through some extreme persecution. So that when he becomes high priest, we can feel confident in him being our high priest, knowing that he can sympathize and understand what we go through and be the aid that we need when we're put to the test.
Very good. Thank you. Brother Miller, please.
And this is a huge help for us too, because as we go through different tests, we can have the confidence that not only does Jesus understand what we're going through, but knows how to help us through those different situations.
Definitely. Brother Zamora, please.
And I enjoy the part in the paragraph where he says he feels so much pressure that he prayed for help with strong outcries and tears, because that is a situation that we sometimes feel too. And knowing that Jesus, the son of Jehovah, now future high priest, had to ask Jehovah for help. Well, now we could sympathize. He could sympathize with us, and we feel the same way.
Thank you. Brother Moreno, please.
In Hebrews 5, 7 through 10, we see how Jesus learned obedience. And when he was in heaven, he always saw that the results of his obedience were always good. But now when he was here on earth, he was able to experience sometimes the suffering that comes with obedience and living in Satan's system. So though he was perfect, he now can, and he was going to now be able to empathize with us. And he could see how for us it's difficult at times to be obedient and also be imperfect. Now he has that sympathy.
Yes. Sister Morales, please.
Just to piggyback on that thought, in verse 15 of chapter 4 of Hebrews, of course, it mentions that he can sympathize with our weaknesses. And an example we can think about is the woman with the flow of blood and how he treated her with kindness, even calling her daughter. And so we can imagine today he can feel our scourgings, the needs that we need, either it be because of persecution, physical, emotional weaknesses, or, it could be the loss of a dead loved one. Jesus knows and he understands.
Yes, thank you for those nice examples. Let's continue with the third reason, paragraph 8.
Third, Jehovah allowed Jesus to suffer so severely in order to answer an important question. Can humans demonstrate godly devotion even when severely tested? Satan says no. He claims that humans serve God for selfish reasons. And he believes that, like their forefather Adam, they are not devoted to Jehovah. Confident in the loyalty of his son, Jehovah allowed Jesus to be tested to the limit of human endurance. Jesus maintained his integrity and proved Satan a liar.
What is a third reason why God allowed Jesus to be tested so severely? Brother Riddle?
At Job chapter 2, verses 4 and 5, at that second heavenly meeting, basically Satan said that there's not a man that could be put on the earth that if he was allowed to test him fully, that would keep his integrity to Jehovah. And so that was a very important question. Beautifully, Jesus proved Satan to be the liar that he is.
Yes. Brother Brown, please.
And the paragraph makes the profound point that he was tested to the limit of human endurance also. So the beauty of that is there's nothing that we can go through now and say, well, this is different. And the scriptures say that Jesus was tested in all respects. And so the way he suffered proved that it's possible for all of us to be faithful.
Thank you. Brother Light, please.
And Satan not only wants us to be disloyal, he goes beyond that. As stated there in Job, he wants us to curse God to his very face. So if that's what Satan wants for us imperfect humans, such as Job and ourselves, then we can just imagine the type of test that he put upon Jesus, who he wanted to sin more than any other human.
Good point. And Sister Parchment, please.
And the same for us. Once we're baptized, we say that we want to follow the example of Job, but even more so Jesus Christ. And that means being upright, blameless, righteous, and faultless. So we want to be complete in our heart, in our devotion to Jehovah. And Job gave us that example, but even more so, the ransom.
Very good. Thank you so much for those excellent comments. So we've summed up nicely. We've answered this question very soundly. Why did Jehovah allow his son, Jesus, to suffer? Next, let's consider the subheading, a Bible writer who deeply appreciated the ransom. Paragraph 9.
The faith of many Christians has been sustained by the teaching of the ransom. They have kept on preaching despite opposition and have endured all sorts of trials right on into old age. Consider the example of the Apostle John. He loyally preached the truth about Christ and the ransom, likely for more than 60 years. When he was in his late 90s, he was apparently considered to be such a threat to the Roman Empire that he was imprisoned on the Isle of Patmos. His crime? Speaking about God and bearing witness concerning Jesus. What an outstanding example of faith and endurance.
What example did the Apostle John set for us? Sister Zamora, please.
Yes, he was a great example of bravery and loyalty to Jehovah, because he preached about Christ and the ransom for decades. And when he was in his oldest age, close to 100, he was obviously very effective because the Roman Empire considered him a threat and imprisoned him. And this just reminds me of the midweek meeting update we watched this week, how it is that in Russia, the ones being imprisoned right now are the older ones. Those are the target. And Satan knows how effective the older ones are because they're the most experienced. They're the pillars in the congregation. And he knew that in in the Apostle John's time, just as he knows it now.
Thank you. Let's see how the Apostle John then expressed his appreciation for the ransom. Paragraph 10.
John expresses his deep love for Jesus and his appreciation for the ransom in his inspired writings. They contain over 100 references, either to the ransom or to the benefits that the ransom makes possible. For example, John wrote, "If anyone does commit a sin, we have a helper with the Father, Jesus Christ, a righteous one." John's writings also stress the importance of witnessing concerning Jesus. Clearly, John deeply appreciated the ransom. How can we show that we do too?
How do John's writings show that he appreciated the ransom? Sister Fruden?
Well, one way was talking about it and talking about how it benefited him, how it benefited all Christians who put faith and exercised faith in that ransom. Because the paragraph mentions there were over 100 references either to the ransom or the benefits of the ransom in his writings.
Thank you. Sister Riddle?
John's writings at Revelation 19:10 indicate that Jesus is the central figure in the outworking of many prophecies in the Bible. From Genesis 3:15 to the visions in Revelation, Bible prophecies can be correctly understood only when the role of Jesus in connection with the Messianic kingdom is taken into consideration. So knowledge of Jesus gives the key to unlocking the meaning of Bible prophecies that are yet to be fulfilled.
Thank you. Brother Gardner, please.
From these short 2 paragraphs, we see that John walked the walk and talked the talk. So it's a good example of what we can do. We got to continue to appreciate the ransom and keep moving forward. We look at John's faithful service, and it's super encouraging.
Thank you for that. Brother Moreno, please.
Many times we like to speak of what we love, but it could also be changed depending on who we're speaking to, our conversations. But when you write something, those are just your thoughts. And John didn't have a computer with autocorrect, something that he could easily just change. He really had to take his time to think about what he was going to write. And we could tell what was really in his heart.
Good thought. Thank you. So with this example of the Apostle John, that really sets the stage for us now to consider ourselves. Our subheading is, how can you show your thankfulness for the ransom? Let's consider paragraph 11.
Resist the temptation to sin. If we truly appreciate the ransom, we will not take the attitude, there is no need for me to put up much resistance when I'm tempted. I can go ahead and commit a sin, and then I'll ask for forgiveness. Rather, when we are tempted to do something wrong, we will say, no. How could I do such a thing after everything Jehovah and Jesus have done for me? In line with that, we can ask Jehovah for strength, begging him, do not allow me to give in to temptation.
With paragraph 11, we have another picture that can be incorporated in your comments. The question is, what can help us resist temptation? Sister Ladinette.
This paragraph really helps us to see that we can have not just a reactive kind of attitude, but a proactive attitude, so that beforehand we can think about what Jehovah's done for us and ask him when these situations occur to give us the strength not to give into that temptation.
Good, thank you. Sister Morales.
And that appreciation and thankfulness, it stems from deep in the heart. And so when we're really tempted, it'll help us to pause. And it's been said that temptation's best friend is indecision. And so we have to be morally decisive when it comes to that. And it stems from meditation, our knowledge, our appreciation and our thankfulness for the ransom.
Yes, thank you. Sister Light?
So when it all comes down to motive, and when we look at our picture there, we can really see what the motive is for these three brothers. Is it based off knowledge that they know that these three things are wrong, and that maybe Jehovah, if I just do it this one time, he'll forgive me? No, but we can see from their facial expression, from their body language, that their reason for resisting the temptation is really because of their love for everything that Jehovah has done.
Thank you so much for drawing attention to the picture. Brother Wicker, please.
I also found that an interesting point, how it isn't 100% contingent on knowledge alone. Rather, it's our appreciation and our love. It's been said that it's easy to rationalize bad decisions. Well, appreciation and love for the ransom will help us rationalize into good decisions. So we see that it's not just enough to learn what Jehovah and Jesus have done for us, but if we truly appreciate it, learn what's been involved and given to us, and if we have that appreciation, it will help us to imitate what our brothers are doing in that picture.
Good. And Brother Miller?
And thinking about that, we can see why it's so important to follow what Matthew 6:13 says, to pray and ask Jehovah for that help to deepen our appreciation and not just do it in the moment, but ahead of time. That way, when that happens, we're ready for it.
Yes. Your comments highlight nicely that it's by our attitude. That's one key way we can show ourselves thankful for the ransom. Let's consider another way in paragraph 12.
Love your brothers and sisters. When we show such love, we also show appreciation for the ransom. Why? Because Jesus gave his life not just for us, but also for our brothers and sisters. If he was ready to die for them, they clearly have great value in his eyes. We express our love for our brothers and sisters by the way we treat them. For example, we help them when they are sick or when they are enduring severe trials, including natural disasters. But what should we do when a fellow believer does or says something that offends us?
May we have a volunteer to read 1 John 3:16 through 18 for us? Brother Juan, please.
By this we have come to know love, because that one surrendered his life for us, and we are under obligation to surrender our lives for our brothers. But whoever has the material possessions of this world and sees his brother in need, and yet refuses to show him compassion, in what way does the love of God remain in him? Little children, we should love not in word or with the tongue, but in deed and truth.
Thank you for that nice reading. Our question, how can we apply the counsel found at 1 John 3:16 to 18? Brother Juan.
Well, just as Jesus gave his life for us, well, we need to have that same love for our brothers and sisters, that we would even give our life to them, whether that's physically giving our life or assisting in any other way that we can, so that they can get the help that's provided as well.
Good. Brother Light?
And also, we can display this type of love on a daily basis by the way we treat our brothers and sisters, how we speak to them as well. There in Ephesians chapter 4, it highlights some beautiful qualities that we want to develop as true Christians. It mentions their kindness, being compassionate towards others, and freely forgiving others.
Thank you for highlighting that. Sister Fruden, please.
And just like our attitude toward the ransom affects like what we say, what we talk about, or what we do, same thing for our brothers and sisters. When we view them with compassion and love, our words and our deeds are naturally going to be upbuilding and encouraging and full of love for them.
Thank you. Sister Wicker.
It's easy to show love for our family or close friend, but when you know somebody is hard. But I like it when mention 1 John 3:6-8, when they say we are on the obligation. No es something that I wanted or sometime. It's something that Jehovah expected from us to show love for our brothers and sisters.
Definitely. Thank you. Brother Parchment?
Yes, and we think of the various situations that have occurred during this last year on the pandemic and the opportunities that arise in unique ways due to the COVID protocols. Different congregations, ones meet with individuals in the hospital, but we can't be there. Our heart goes out. And I think of the verse there in 1 John 3:16-18, where it talks about compassion. And so no doubt our compassion has been raised to levels that we have not recognized would be possible during these last months of the pandemic. And they will continue on as we recognize we come into another hurricane season and disasters that were of epic nature last year, over 200 plus. So we have a lot of opportunities to show our compassion for our dear brothers in various situations.
Yes. No doubt over the past year, we've learned new ways of showing love to our brothers and sisters. On this same topic of loving our brothers and sisters, so let's consider paragraph 13.
Are you inclined to hold a grudge against a fellow believer? If so, follow this advice. Continue putting up with one another and forgiving one another freely if anyone has a cause for complaint against another. Just as Jehovah freely forgave you, you must also do the same. Every time we forgive our brother or sister, we prove to our Heavenly Father that we truly appreciate the ransom. How can we continue to deepen our appreciation for this gift from God?
Why should we be forgiving? Brother Gardner?
As we've been talking about Jesus' life, we kind of reflect on how he forgave maybe Peter, maybe stumbled many times, or the Roman soldiers too. He said, they do not know what they're doing, forgive them, Jehovah. So it's a good example for us. It would be hypocritical if we didn't forgive, because Jehovah is constantly forgiving us.
Thank you. Brother Zamora, please.
In Colossians 3:13, the word freely is repeated at least twice. And it mentions there that just as Jehovah freely forgave you, you must also do the same. And that word freely is important because it's just giving the idea that we should do it all the time, constantly forgive our brothers and sisters, which at the same time, we show appreciation to Jehovah. We show that we believe in that ransom and we want that ransom because we freely do it.
Thank you. Sister Riddle?
Holding a grudge may be likened to when someone has received a big incision from a serious surgery, but then takes their finger and starts putting it in that wound and poking around. It wouldn't help the healing process whatsoever. So when we apply Colossians 3:13 and truly let go and put the hurt behind us, and that's incentive that Jehovah can now freely forgive us.
Good. Thank you for that vivid illustration. Brother Ratty, please.
And I appreciate that in the wording Paul uses, he says, if anyone has a cause for complaint. So there will be a cause for complaint. There is going to be a reason why we're hurt, why we're offended, whatever it may be. But when we think about it, Jehovah for over 6,000 years has had a cause for complaint with every single one of us, mankind. No matter how hard we've tried, no matter what we do, or how hard we don't try, Jehovah's had a cause for complaint, and he opened the door willingly for forgiveness. We want to imitate that same humble attitude.
Very nice point. Thank you. Brothers and sisters, I appreciate your hands so much. I wish we could get further comments, but we do need to continue in our discussion. So we've summed up nicely two key ways that we can show our thankfulness for the ransom. Our final subheading now focuses on how can you deepen your appreciation for the ransom? And we'll consider 3 ways of doing so. First, let's consider 14.
Thank Jehovah for the ransom. I think that it is important to mention the ransom each day in my prayers and to thank Jehovah for it, says an 83-year-old sister named Joanna who lives in India. In your private prayers, think about specific mistakes you have made during the day and then ask Jehovah for forgiveness. Of course, if you've committed a serious sin, you will also need the help of the elders. They will listen to you and offer loving counsel from God's word. They will pray with you, asking Jehovah to continue applying the value of Jesus' sacrifice so that you may be spiritually healed.
What is one way we can deepen our appreciation for the ransom? Brother Ledinet?
We see a beautiful example of our 83-year-old sister in the paragraph that she views it as something very important to every day mention to Jehovah thankfulness for the ransom. We know what we have made mistakes in through the day. Almost instantly, we always know the mistake we've made. So thanking Jehovah for overlooking these things, of forgiving us, and by providing the gift of Jesus and the ransom is one way that we can build our appreciation.
Good. Sister Fruden, please.
I like too her comment about thinking about specific mistakes, right? And then asking Jehovah for forgiveness. Because then too, you build your appreciation for the ransom because you're like, oh, thank you, Jehovah, that this is provided. But then it also helps you to think about, okay, if this situation comes up again, how can I avoid it? And can you continue to build my appreciation for the ransom so I don't make that mistake again?
Thank you. Brother Moreno, please.
And with the ransom, we remember that Jehovah has a perfect system of justice. So we should remember also that if we had committed a serious sin, we want to follow Jehovah's set standard and go to the elders. They're going to be able to listen to us. They're going to apply the oil in the name of Jehovah, God's word, and they'll also pray for us so that we can fix our relationship with Jehovah.
Very good. Thank you for incorporating the thoughts there from James chapter 5. Good. What is a second way then that we can deepen our appreciation for the ransom? Paragraph 15.
Meditate on the ransom. When I read of Jesus' suffering, says a 73-year-old sister named Rajamani, my eyes fill with tears. You too may find it painful to think about how God's Son suffered so much. But the more you meditate on the sacrifice Jesus made, the deeper your love for him and for his Father will become. To help you meditate on the ransom, why not make this topic a special study project?
Why should we take time to read about the ransom and meditate on it? Sister Zamora?
Because we want to deepen our love for Jehovah, and we want to involve our hearts, not just read words. We want it to mean something to us.
Definitely. Brother Miller.
Thinking about this, it kind of reminds me of like when we're children and our parents take care of us. We love them for it. But as we get older and older and we look back on how they've cared for us over the years, we love them more and more, and our love for them just deepens. The same thing can apply with Jehovah. When we first come into the truth, we love him for the ransom, but we want to continue meditating on what that means for us and what a sacrifice it was, and deepening our love for what he's done for us.
That's a nice comparison. Thank you. Sister Parchment?
And I love the point that they bring out here. Why not make this a topic for personal study? It's excellent. Now we have the extra study Bible. We have the pictures. We have the references. We have the maps. It takes you there. And that's a nice way to be able to deepen my love for the ransom sacrifice. It's been wonderful.
Definitely. Brother Zamora, please.
And I'm sure when we read paragraph 4 earlier on, it was hard to read what Jesus suffered. And it's important that when we think about the ransom, we're not just thinking about the act of him dying and what we get after, but even what came before, to fully appreciate the context of that ransom, of that sacrifice. Maybe even just showing empathy if we saw a close friend, in front of us, if we went through the same situation, what would we feel? So it's important that we meditate not just on the moment, but the whole context.
Definitely. Excellent point. Thank you. Brother Miller? Okay. Let's go to Brother Brown.
And I also appreciated this point of making it a study project, because over the years, you have to dig deeper to find new little gems and details of what you appreciate about that night in Jesus' sacrifice. And so this week, we took the gospel accounts and looked at the 4 different perspectives of the Lord's evening meal and when he identified Judas, and even the smallest details in there of the self-control he had to identify his betrayer in front of his friends. And those types of things, when those gems come up and you meditate on them, your appreciation for what Jesus did really deepens.
Definitely. Thank you. Let's consider the third way that we can deepen our appreciation. Paragraph 16.
Teach others about the ransom. Each time we tell others about the ransom, our appreciation for it will grow. We have some excellent tools to use in teaching others why Jesus had to die for us. For example, we can use lesson 4 of the brochure Good News from God. That lesson has the title, Who is Jesus Christ? Or we could refer to chapter 5 of the book, What Can the Bible Teach Us? That chapter is entitled, The Ransom, God's Greatest Gift. And each year, we deepen our gratitude for the ransom by attending the memorial of Jesus' death and by zealously inviting others to join us. What a privilege Jehovah has given us to teach others about his Son.
How can teaching others about the ransom benefit us? And feel free to comment on the cover picture here of our magazine in connection with this paragraph. Brother Wicker, please.
It helps show and build appreciation whenever we do so. And isn't it true, whenever we give a priceless gift to someone, wouldn't it be weird if they never said a word about it? Well, likewise, we've been given a priceless gift in the ransom. We show and demonstrate our appreciation by means of teaching and talking about that to others.
Excellent. Thank you. Brother Ratty.
And as we do this, really, when we teach others about the ransom, we're having to answer the questions all over again of why did God give it? Why is it so important? Why does this show us that Jehovah loves us as individuals? So doing that will just really drill it down further in our minds, Jehovah's deep love for us.
Yes, thank you. Sister Fruden?
And now we have the wonderful teaching tool of the Enjoy Life Forever book. And in lesson 27, it talks about the ransom. But it's beautiful because it asks the question in the dig deeper portion. It asks you to ask the student, how has Adam's sin affected your life? And in that way, then, it helps the person to build some appreciation for this ransom in their own life and how it can benefit them today and in the future.
Oh, thank you for highlighting that. Brother Latinet?
And sadly, in this world, many have not really been able to feel real love from their family members or from others. But when we're privileged to teach them about Jehovah and Jesus, showing this real, genuine love and providing the ransom, they are touched to the heart. And when we see them being touched, that really strengthens us and reinforces in us the privilege we have to teach others about Jehovah and Jesus.
Yes, it does. And Brother Zamora?
And even though we get to teach about this throughout the whole year, there's one moment where it's so special where the paragraph says, we are zealously inviting others to join us. And this is for the memorial, attending the memorial of Jesus' death. So it is so important that when those moments come, that moment of the year comes, we try our best so that others could benefit or learn about that ransom.
Excellent point. Sister Wicker?
This is remember me at one Bible study. Never people, they never speak with her or show love. And she asked it to me, why you show love me, Delenia? Say, well, Jehovah show love me, I need show love you. That's it. Every day I try love any people in my life.
Thank you for that nice example, personal experience. So we have excellent ways here that we can put in, we can apply in our life, ways of deepening our appreciation for this most precious gift. Let's sum up this lesson with our final paragraph 17.
Without a doubt, we have good reason to develop and maintain deep appreciation for the ransom. Because of the ransom, we can have a close friendship with Jehovah, even though we are imperfect. Because of the ransom, the works of the devil will be completely broken up. Because of the ransom, Jehovah's original purpose for the earth will be fulfilled. The entire planet will become a paradise. Everyone you meet will love Jehovah and serve him. Let us then each day look for ways to show our appreciation for the ransom, God's greatest gift to mankind.
Thank you so much for that good reading and heartfelt reading for us, Brother Latinet. Our question for 17, why is the ransom God's greatest gift to mankind? Sister Moreno?
We see that it's a gift because being imperfect, we could never have that close relationship with Jehovah. But because of the ransom, we have the privilege of having a close friendship with Jehovah.
Yes. Brother Light, please.
And I can't imagine going through the end of this system of things without a hope. But all because of the ransom, like our sister mentioned, we have that ability to have a close relationship with Jehovah, but we also have the prospect of seeing Jehovah's purpose fulfilled and enjoy the blessings that Jehovah and Jesus have in store for us in the near future. And that's all thanks to the ransom.
Excellent. Thank you. Sister Zamora?
And that promise includes being surrounded by those that love him and want to serve him, not like those that surround us today.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you so much for those the comments throughout our lesson and for doing so well at tying in all of these scriptures, the various scriptures that were cited in the paragraphs and our read scriptures as well, making them the focus of this discussion. We have a review box to consider. How would you answer? First, what is the ransom? Brother Gardner?
Well, recently I broke one of my car keys. I sat on it and I didn't have a spare. So basically I was trapped, stranded until I got another. And keys, they have to be an exact copy or it won't work. So I eventually got one and I was able to get on to where I was going. So the ransom is the key. It's Jesus' precious blood, and it's getting us on the path that we originally started.
Thank you for that great illustration and clear answer to the question. Sister Parchment, please.
Also, the ransom helps us to see that Jesus wanted to follow Jehovah's standard of justice, which is brought out in Exodus 21, 23, and 24, a life for a life.
Thank you for that. Our second question, why did Jesus have to suffer and die? Brother Wicker, please.
Not only was he responsible for covering our sin, but also, as we mentioned, there was the curse that the nation of Israel was under. Also, it gave him training for his future role as our high priest. And also, it would answer an important question: can humans demonstrate godly devotion even when severely tested?
Excellent. We got all three reasons there. Good. Our final question, how can we deepen our appreciation for the ransom? Brother Brown, please.
Well, just to take one, we thank Jehovah for it. So we need to mention specific mistakes in our private prayers, ask Jehovah's forgiveness for them.
Excellent. Good. Brother Miller, please.
Also, we want to take time to really meditate and think about all of the different aspects of the ransom and apply it to ourselves and see how it applies.
Yes. We have so many helpful pictures even, right, in our lesson today and in other publications and other material that helped us to do that meditation. Brother Zamora, you had a thought?
And the third one is teach others about the ransom. So every time we tell others about the ransom, our own appreciation will grow and eventually theirs too.
Excellent. Brother Parchment?
So I was thinking with all these three reminders, it helps us to appreciate that it's not just in our minds maybe an annual thing, the memorial's coming up, the memorial season, and we get our minds set around this. But this article just re-emphasized to me, personally, to continue to emphasize this is a daily matter, not just an annual consideration.
Yes, very, very good point for us to consider. And Brother Latinet, please.
And what's beautiful about the ransom, as we saw in our last paragraphs, is it makes possible our future, life in the new world. But even then, we'll be still thanking Jehovah and Jesus for the ransom. So this is something that we'll be appreciative of for all eternity because of this wonderful gift Jehovah's given for us.
Indeed. Well, certainly this lesson has warmed our hearts, hasn't it? It's deepened our love for our Heavenly Father Jehovah and for his Son Jesus. So may we apply what we've discussed today and continue day by day, as was mentioned, to deepen our appreciation for this greatest gift we could ever receive, the ransom. That concludes our Watchtower study and our meeting. We'll now sing a song in closing, song number 20, entitled You Gave Your Precious Son. Again, another appropriate song that ties in with what we've just discussed. And after singing song 20, Brother Riddle will offer our closing prayer.